don't know what it is yet. I'm trying to figure it out, but there's something about the energy of orange things and things like energetically like that I'm working out in my shit. I'm like,
Mm.
oh, okay. um,
Hmm.
so who can say? But anyways,
Yeah.
now that I've geeked out and we've talked about cars and whatnot, I ask people to start out with this question. So how do you introduce yourself to people right now?
Like on an airplane or something. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Or you're at a
Just like
cool,
I'm just like,
little event, and like people are like, "Hey, like, what's your thing? What do you
oh,
like to
okay.
do? What brings you joy?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Assume it's a safe space, a cool space where people aren't going to be a dick to
Right,
you.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I usually tell people a little bit about where I live, which is on 28 acres in the woods on a little pond in a little A-frame, surrounded by art and black Madonnas. And so a big
You
part of
just
my life
described what
is
I want
being
for
on the
myself. I can't
land.
wait.
Yeah, I moved here. I was living in New Mexico for most of 2020, and I moved back to New England because this is where the land mothers me, and I feel like the land calls me, so I just came here and live on some land and spend a lot of time in the woods year round. So even this afternoon I'll go and walk in the woods in the snow, and so that's a big part of my life is connecting with the earth, which is really my mother, because so much of my journey has taken me out of the communities that claimed to mother me.
Hmm.
And so I really rely on the earth to mother me more than I ever have. So in that, I also describe myself as someone who stimulates spiritual imagination. And so I'm kind of creative and artsy, and I'm coming into my identity as an artist much more, even though I was raised as a scientist, and that's what my
Hmm.
PhD is in the science. So, yeah, I'm
I
a
want to.
weaver.
I I want to pull on that thread, if I may, because A,
Yeah,
that's something your book
absolutely.
does, and something your
Mhm.
Instagram says, just like kind of a witch, but like with Christian roots. And I'm like, same, same.
Yeah,
Which like,
yeah,
because I've gotten
yeah,
to a point where I'm just like, I don't call myself a Christian because I don't. That's a throw a dart and you can hit one, you know. So I
yeah,
can't really tell what
yeah.
that means, but and then I read tarot and keep the wheel of the
Mm-hmm.
year,
Mm-hmm.
um, and very devoted to the many faces of God, and
Mm-hmm.
it just like has just come so naturally to me. I'm just like, Jesus is my brother, my friend, and my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
For this point in my life. So some people will call me a Christian because of that, and some people will call me a heretic because I lit
Because
a
of that.
candle because I lit a candle when I prayed today.
Yeah,
You know.
and because you only said that Jesus was your brother, your teacher, and your friend,
Hmm.
and not your Lord and Savior.
Heaven forbid that I'm. But the thing is, he's just like he said it. You have called me Lord, Lord, and that is what I am. But now I call you friends. He said it.
that
So
was
why
very
am
that was that was very evangelical for you to be like, the Bible says so.
I am just a good biblical Christian out here trying to believe what the word says, God, it's so annoying that like I've come back to certain things and just like, oh yeah, that was truer than true. Shit.
Oh my gosh, I had that experience at a Buddhist retreat
Mm.
when I learned that love and fear are like the basis of everything, and every thought, emotion, and behavior comes from either love or fear. And I'm like, I feel like that's the same thing that First John says, like perfect
Mm.
love casts out fear. You know what I mean? Like I was like,
My
wait a
my.
second, coming circle, full circle. Like maybe like all truth comes from the same source, and it just flows in different religious streams, but I was just like, I heard that at
Hmm.
the church. It was communicated in a much more violent way.
Yeah.
Like,
It.
if you have fear, it's because you don't have love. But I think what First John was really saying was, hey, all thoughts, emotions, and behaviors come from either love or fear, which is
Mhm.
like what I heard in the Buddhist retreat.
Yeah, and you can tell which ones are coming from love or feel based off of the your
the
body. What's
vibe.
happening to
Yeah.
you when you
Yeah,
believe that thought.
exactly. Yeah, totally. So, but yeah, it is interesting when you, yeah, you notice, gosh, there's some really incredible truths in scripture amidst all of the violence and patriarchy and anti-blackness and
Yeah. It's one of those things where like I don't hold the Bible up as like any holier than my own story. Like, and I think that's something that you in your book really, because like this is I learned this shit from Audre Lorde and James Cone and all them. Just like you need to believe like what's happening, what's in front of you, and specifically what I believe I'm picking up through your work is like you're a super womanist. Yes, would you say that?
Yeah, I would be honored to be included in that group. Yes.
Yeah. Meaning,
Yeah.
so like, just like, I'm prizing and, centering the experiences, thoughts, theologies of Black women as a source of deep wisdom.
Yeah.
And,
And a deep knowing. Yeah. A
mm,
deep knowing. Yeah. Yeah.
what you do so wonderfully in your book is, I think especially when you talk about like the chapter, the god of the gag reflex.
Oh,
When,
yeah. White male gods disgust for human need.
yeah.
Yeah.
You start off so beautifully talking about just like when you learn not to have need. And so I wonder for you, like, well, I guess let's just dive into book stuff.
Okay.
God as a Black woman is talking about your experience going on pilgrimage to visit these different Black Madonnas throughout different areas of France, correct?
Yeah. One region, the Auvergne region. Yeah.
So for someone who doesn't know the Black Madonna, who she is, what she's about, what's your? Do you have like a short version to say? This is who she is.
Sure. Yeah. She's a Black version of the Virgin Mary, and she's usually connected to the earth. She usually is associated with like really fun and feisty miracles. And most Black Madonnas have like a deeper lineage. So they're sort of housed in Catholic churches, and sometimes the Catholic Church claims them. But really, their lineage goes back to the great dark goddesses of old, like Isis and Sybil and Black Artemis of Ephesus and Demeter. And so they can't be contained by any religion or people. And there are about 450 official Black Madonnas around the world. So they're almost on every continent. And so people of all races venerate them and different religions. So for example, the Black Madonna in Senegal, in West Africa, is like a pilgrimage site for Muslims, Hindus, and Christians. So a lot of them are super interfaith. Yeah.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the folks that are like kind of venerate them through indigenous or like avant-garde witchy spirituality. So.
Brilliant. I think what I really have loved about the book is like, as I was listening to it, like, I mean, like, I think like people will automatically hear God and in America and think, oh, she's gonna talk about Jesus now, because that's who we associate it with. Nope. Like, as I'm going through this, I was like, as I'm listening to this, I was like, not a once has she talked about Jesus, and I love that because I'm just like, she's like, oh, she gets it. She knows he's not the point. And
yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's powerful about just like Marian devotion or Mary worship in general, is recognizing that like Mother of God or the God birther is God. And I love how in the Greek Orthodox Church there's this like ancient hymn where they call Mary the enclosure of the God whom nothing can enclose. Which is just like this is reality. Mary is reality, right? And like everything that's within her, like we might try to parse that out and be like, oh, that's Jesus or that's so and so, but like she's the enclosure of the God who cannot be enclosed. So like she's it, So it is cool to kind of take, especially as someone who's been so injured by a white male version of God. It's really powerful to like encounter these Black Madonnas where they might have the baby Jesus, they might not, but either way, that's not the point.
Yeah. You You talk a lot about in the book about leaving, like learning to leave the plantations of different areas of your life. I also like caught your live with Austin where y'all were talking about that too.
Mm.
Um, about
Mm-hmm.
having to leave these plantations or these spaces where, you know, white male God and his servants they expect your worship or your devotion or your allegiance or your subservience to them. Um, when did you? At least I know that you've worked in like Ivy League land for a while, and like that's like where like you've done a lot of your stuff. When did you know that you needed to leave those that you needed to leave those spaces?
Well, in 20, yeah, not in 2017. So about 1 year into my journey towards the sacred Black feminine, my entire digestive system shut down. I was bedridden the whole summer of 2017. And I took all these tests and like I was in the hospital all the time. And all my doctors, a whole team of doctors at Duke Hospital just concluded that everything, like all my digestive issues were just the cause of unresolved trauma. And so I just remember like getting that diagnosis, which is not really a diagnosis because like what do you do with that? It's not like you're like, and then take this pill, you know.
No, it's just like, hey,
or even
this is all like your internal world fucking with you
and also
a little
exactly,
bit.
yeah. And also it's not like you can even have a surgery to fix it,
Right.
you know, like there's no radiation treatment, like there's no nothing. And so I remember going home and just like I had a soaking tub at my house and I would take a bath every night. And I would just remember thinking, my life is literally indigestible. Like this job that I'm trying to do at Duke, where I was hired to be the director of the Center for Reconciliation at Duke. And so I was there trying to do reconciliation literally on the plantation. Like the plantation's ever going to lead the reconciliation movement. You know what I mean? Like I just remember going to Duke Chapel, which is this huge, like phallic Gothic structure in the middle of campus. And when you walk in, there's like he's no longer there because of the like racial reckoning a couple years ago, whatever. But when I was faculty there, the first, you walk in and there's a life-size monument to Robert E. Lee in the chapel, right next to like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and stuff. Like it's like you have all the like church saints.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Robert, the church, right? the fathers of our faith. I knew it.
Exactly. It's like literally you have all these saints lined up, and then also Robert E. Lee right there with them. And so I remember going there and being like, and I'm supposed to do reconciliation here, like what? So I just remember, having this physical. My body literally was like, I quit. And actually, like, gosh, it's amazing that it took that long for my body to quit. That just says a lot about the resilience, my own resilience, because
strong as fuck.
Yeah, I had to start just like realizing though, like this is not a sustainable situation. And that's when I started looking specifically at my vocational work, which had been at Duke and then also in white evangelical colleges where I was doing reconciliation work. So that was one plantation I had to get off of, but there were so many plantations, leaving my church space, leaving behind a lot of friendships, leaving behind a lot of like really rethinking my family relationships. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many opportunities for freedom. Yeah. And to say, I'm too sacred for this.
I am too sacred for this.
I'm too sacred for this.
Yo, put that on a poster and a shirt and just send it to people who need it. Listen, make yourself a little printful, make yourself a little coin. The side hustle is real out here.
Seriously, well,
people will buy cute shirts. I'm telling you.
People do buy cute shirts. It's weird. But I want to do a reality show where I just like go into people's lives and help them identify that like the like anti-Black or like whatever racist relationships that they're a part of, and just help them just get out. like help them like tell their racist friend that they're no longer, because I'm like really good at firing friends. That's one thing I've learned is how to fire friends and how to fire your pastor, how to fire your pastor, how to fire your therapist, how to fire your family members.
Listen, okay, so this is good. So I am always the person like when I'm talking with folks, like there's just like, okay, I have to keep this relationship because we have, we're family or we have a kid together, if that's the thing, I'm just like, okay, so I get that. But for folks like, for whom like the boundaries have been crossed so many times, and it's getting to the point where just like, it's just like we have these stresses. And I mean, I'll say for me as a queer human is like I developed some digestive shit as well, like around like and I developed like towards the end of college, I was having panic attacks like all the time, and I didn't know what was going on because my body had so much stress from the dissonance.
Yeah.
And it was because I was forcing myself into these boxes, and I tried to fire my pastor, but then he like, sweet talked me back in. So how do you fire a pastor? How do you fire those people?
Well, I think the question, I mean, even what you just said, like we're family or we have a kid together, like I think one of the things that I awakened to through my journey to the sacred Black feminine is how much white male God taught me that faithfulness means being faithful to everybody but yourself. Faithfulness means steadiness, right? Faithfulness means steadiness. Faithfulness means never changing your tune. It means never changing. It means never changing. It means never growing. And I also just realized how much white male God like keeps us trapped in these relationships because we believe like because of white male God's like gross linear relationship to time. Like time isn't fluid or abundant or like permeable.
Time's always running out.
Time is always running out, and time is static and linear. And so like the whole concept of valuing a friendship that's just for a season and actually being able to let it go, like just welcome it in and then just let it drift away when it's time. That feels like, I mean, even just the way white male God conceives of marriage, it's like marriage to one person forever and ever and ever. And it's just, or else that's not faithful, or else that's not good, or else there isn't love.
Or it's invalid.
And exactly, it's invalid, right? And so it was starting to piece together these like broader white patriarchal themes in my life and then applying them to my relationships. And it's realizing, wait a second, this person is theologically incapable, does not have the spiritual imagination to see my sacredness. And the more and more I got connected to my sacredness, the less tolerant I was of that. And so in some cases, we have a conversation and I would say, I need X, Y, and Z from you. And I need you to get into formation fast. Sometimes I would just be like, this situation is so violent and toxic. I'm just going to ghost them. Because I learned as a womanist to always prioritize my well-being. It is not my job to teach someone another way. It is not my job to help them disentangle from white patriarchy. It is not my job to like, so, and it's like, I work with all these friends who work with domestic abuse survivors. And the first thing is just get out, not reconciliation, conversation. How are we going to co-parent the kids? The first thing is just get out.
Right.
And so I in some relationships, I just got out and then maybe later circled back for conversations. In other cases, just was like, you know what? I bless you in my meditation practice and I keep on moving because there's and then the more I got connected to a sacred Black feminine, God as a Black woman, the more I'm like, she's got them. I don't need to go back and rescue them. Like, I'm not responsible for them. I'm not responsible for their salvation, whatever, you know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
And so, yeah, I remember telling one of my pastors, I was just like, yeah, this church is, this church said, I don't know. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you, I don't know if you've gotten to this part in the book yet, but I talk about an experience I had at this church called, that I call my little plantation on the prairie church, because it was in Minneapolis.
I think not yet, but I'm going to get there.
Yeah, that's part of a whole section called Severing My Career as Christianity's House Nigger. And so I basically go and talk about all these plantations.
The name!
I know, right? And so I was at this church and I just told the pastor, like, you talk a game about racial justice, but this church is a little plantation on the prairie for me, and I'm out, and and then a bunch of Black people followed within the next few weeks. There weren't a lot of Black people there, but I was sort of like the mother hen of the Black people. And of course, I got labeled a Jezebel and Christena's dangerous and Christena's, out there causing problems or whatever.
It's always the word dangerous. I'm like, danger.
I know, yeah.
I'm dangerous?
I know. Well, I am kind of dangerous in the sense that, like, don't sleep on me.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
Like,
mean? But in that sense, I was literally just leading people to liberation. And so the pastor was threatened by that. And I'm not dangerous in the sense that like I'm not out there like trying to bring people down, but I will speak truth, you know.
oh yeah.
And
It's
so
like
yeah, but I
seeing this.
mean there's something very subversive about Black sacred femininity.
Mhm.
It's like
And
don't
also
go
just like
sleep.
I'm sure you've already like gotten this already, but there's going to be the person who's like, God's not a black woman. Jesus was like Jesus was I saw a comment
Jesus,
on somebody's thing. It's like Jesus was clearly white, and by the way, I'm Israeli and Jewish, so I would know. And I was like,
um,
hmm,
there's a lot to unpack there.
yeah, but like
Like,
I can't.
yeah, I got a lot of that early on. And when I first went on my Black Madonna pilgrimage, when I went on my Black Madonna pilgrimage in 2018, I was still kind of seen as this like evangelical mascot. And so I was like speaking in all these like really high profile events in the evangelical world. I had just finished my tenure as a columnist for Christianity Today magazine. I was still a professor at Duke. And so it was very shocking for a lot of people when I went on my pilgrimage because I've been having this like internal transformation. But then just still continuing, because I was in my process. So I was just still on the outside doing what I had been doing, even though on the inside I was changing a lot. And so my sort of announcement or like debut as a witch or whatever was when I went on my Black Madonna pilgrimage. And I was like, I'm just going to post what I'm doing on this pilgrimage. Like, I'm not going to hide it, but the pilgrimage was for me. So I was like, I'm not going to be out here doing an apologetic and explaining myself to people. I'm just going to post this is what I went to visit today and this is what I'm experiencing. And I was like, I'm kind of curious to see how people respond because at that time, like I had way more followers on social media and my average followers, like a little bio was like Kevin, lover of Jesus, father, pastor, husband. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
That would
right?
be
Like,
me if I had
like
stayed. If I had stayed.
yeah, right. That was like literally my like average follower. And now my average follower is like Wichita, tarot, witchy, and like candles. You know what I mean?
No, it's just like evil eye emoji, black heart emoji, bat emoji. That's
yeah,
it.
or something like that, right? And like, yeah, and so it's like these very like it's changed a lot, but all those folks, those like pastor, father, husband, like people, they had been following me and like propping up my book. I wrote this book about divisions in the church that a lot of pastors read, and Christena Cleaveland's so great, invited me to this stuff. And then as soon as I changed my tune, you would think, right, these people who have been listening and learning and benefiting from my wisdom would be like, oh, let's lean in. Christena's a wise teacher. No, that's not what happened because I'm a Black woman and there's nothing holy about Black women in there. As long as I contorted myself into what they needed me to be and was stayed on the plantation as the house nigger, then they were going to listen, sort of, but not really, because now I see they weren't actually seeing me as a spiritual leader in their lives.
Yeah.
I just happened to be offering something that they could use. I was the prop, yeah. And so then I lost like tens of thousands. I mean, just like complete obliteration when I just started asking these questions. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna be out here visiting these Black Madonnas, seeing what comes up and writing about what comes up. And yeah, so they all left, which was great. It felt like a cleansing.
It was just like, I like y'all, but not really. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, it was my soul was like this deteriorating, like I was at these speaking engagements being like, this is whack, y'all are whack, this ain't it. I don't believe that you're gonna make change.
Right. like, so this is where I am in the same boat as you, where like I was working for Reformation Project a couple of years ago, and then it went tits up because white men in power do white men in power things. Even though the organization was built by queer trans women.
I didn't know Reformation. I guess I didn't know that organization. Does that organization still exist?
Reformation Project? Yes.
Okay. I haven't been connected to it in years. So I
Yeah.
didn't know what was going on. Okay.
Oh, long and short of it, what was because let me not air tea on the air. We can talk about that later.
Okay.
But it's all on the internet. It doesn't matter. I could talk about it because it's not gossip. Anyways, is it? I don't know. I gotta
It
talk to.
totally
I
is
need to.
gossip if it's online. Half of online is gossip.
God damn it. Well, let me not stir the pot more. Like this is like a pot that's 2 years old. Like let's let it die.
Okay. Yeah, that just
Any
goes to show how disconnected I am from even the more progressive aspects of the
oh,
progressive streams of Christianity, because like I had no idea. I know people who worked for them, but I guess yeah. Anyways.
oh yeah. I'll send you some links you can read on your own if you like. Open letters and whatnot. Um, this is also something I'm wrestling with. This is a side tangent. The thing I'm wrestling with in myself is that I know that ultimately that little bit of like part of me that is, you know, a drama queen because, just there's nothing more delicious to me than just like good tea and I want to sit with my friends and I want to be right sometimes. And I want to be right so bad because I have been told I've been wrong so much.
Yeah.
And the thing I am kind of recognizing now is that it does like being right has never actually made me completely happy. Like even if I get it right, that means that that person doesn't think I'm right. I didn't
Yeah.
get the thing I wanted from them. All I got was stress and like thinking I have to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that capitalism does to you. And I don't want to do
It's
that
so
anymore
white
because
patriarchal. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense to me, and I can really relate to that because I remember earlier on in my journey towards the sacred Black feminine, where I was like really deconstructing so much of the white patriarchal religious conditioning I had. I really, really, really craved affirmation, and
Mhm.
that feels very normal because on the one hand, you feel unsafe. You're venturing into the unknown, and also we've been taught that certainty is like a fruit of the spirit. And so if you are like
Be fruit of
venturing
the
out,
spirit.
right? Yeah, right. And so like if you're starting to ask questions that um, undermine your sense of security in the world,
Mhm.
either financially or relationally or spiritually or whatever, you're like you just want affirmation. Okay, you're on the right path. Just keep going. Just you're gonna be okay. Like, and so sometimes that affirmation looks like people agreeing with you, and so then
Mhm.
it's actually threatening when people don't agree, and you get feedback where people are like, well, I think you're a heretic, or I think you're whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and so then it's like that's when I think I have these impulses where it's nice to see an organization that hurt me sort of self-combust because it feels affirming of
Mhm.
my journey and my pain. And I think the more I have found security in the sacred Black feminine, the
Mhm.
less I need that. You know, the more
Yeah.
I heal, the less I need that, and the easier it is for me to say now when someone disagrees. Well, you could be right. That's
Mm.
possible, you know. But that's like super, super, super hard, and it is. Yeah, but I totally
Can be.
I can relate so much because I mean, we're social beings. We want to be affirmed, we want to feel safe, and we want to feel
Mhm.
embraced by our community.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Can I ask your advice slash opinion so like the most of the folks I work with were deconstructing evangelicalism, leaving Christianity, like kind of moving in some sort of expansive spiritual space, and I kind of help facilitate those kinds of things. And what I notice more than anything, especially like around fellow content creators, is that the most shared, the thing the algorithm pushes to people more than anything is reactions to people behaving badly. Like specifically,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm going to pull
Mm-hmm.
this evangelical,
Mm-hmm.
right now the guy from
Mm-hmm.
Skillet is in the headlines for saying I'm declaring a war on deconstructing Christianity, and like, and I'm sitting over here, I'm just like, I wouldn't have known that had my friends not shared it because I don't care anymore because it's just like, well, he said that. I'm like, yeah, are you surprised? He really thinks that. Isn't that crazy? That's my reaction now. When you're working with, I don't know if you're working with those, but when you talk to folks about like, well, You said, as I've journeyed toward the sacred Black feminine, my connection to these even progressive streams of Christianity have kind of gone by the wayside.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And that sounds so healing in some ways, because now it's just like, I'm not even I don't let the
Yeah.
idiots control my mood anymore, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I think for me it has been about managing my trauma too. I'm not unique to most people who are evangelical in the sense that like I have a lot of pain and trauma in that space. I am unique in the sense that I held and occupied really high profile spaces in that and was sort of like made an example of in some ways, and so
Mhm.
my experiences are different than some other folks. And so I have had some friends who feel more connected to that world. And I've had to just say, yeah, don't fill me in on the latest
Mhm.
drama in that, because I'm like you, I don't really care what the skillet guy is saying, and I'm not surprised. And I'm not interested in like having a debate about why it's a problem.
Because like
Like,
it's apparent.
it's
Like,
apparent, yeah. And other people, I think, maybe find solace in talking about it, but I don't. I find solace in like being in the woods and just like being like, yeah, that's my old life, and I don't even want that energy to be a part of my life anymore. Um, but I think that that's just a decision I've had to make around boundaries, and it's cost me some friendships. I have some friends who very much want to keep one foot in that world, and
mhm.
that's painful. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of like, ugh, I don't really need to talk about the latest
Mm.
terrible thing that someone's doing in that world that is inherently terrible.
Yeah.
Like people are
And
just
also,
doing what they're taught to do. Like,
yeah, I'm just like, of course, like, he's behaving badly. His paycheck is now threatened for the first time in his life. The empire is crumbling around him, and he sees that, guess what? The royalties on your music are not going to pay for your kids' college, bruh, because your music's not that good.
yeah, it was never that good. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like,
And it's just like people, it's like you think that people can't see the hypocrisy, but they can. Like, just, and it's something you said, like, I don't have to worry about that guy. Spirit has him. She's got him. Like,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
no. You do not chew on the banister, young lady. Thank you.
He's
Sorry,
not
my
talking to
dog.
me for people who are listening.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. My dog's over in the corner, just like she's sitting at the window, just chewing on it. I'm like, what do you? No. You have a bone right there, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're gonna come say
I
sorry.
will say, honestly, I think part of it's developmental. I don't mean to say
Hmm.
developmental in this linear, like growth, like, oh, I'm beyond that in my journey sort of way. But I think in so I always keep going back to the metaphor of the plantation, right?
Bring it.
And there's been there's been so many times on my journey where I've thought about Harriet Tubman. Now, Harriet Tubman
Hmm.
at some point woke up and was like, I'm too sacred for this,
Hmm.
right? Like at some point. But I wonder how many days or months or years lapsed before she actually left. And so I think there's like a sacred period in between where we realize something is really wrong and we deserve better, and the period and the point at which we actually are ready to just say goodbye to the plantation and risk everything, right? Because you literally are risking everything. And so I think like there was a time in my life where I was kind of like those people who wanted to just fixate on the toxic things that were happening in that space. And that was part of my process of sort of drumming up the courage and the freedom to actually step in the direction of my sacredness. And
Hmm.
I think that's like a really holy time. And so I bless the people who are in that space, and I bless the people who are holding space for people who are in that space. Like I remember, I guess it was 2014, 2015. I worked with a few other Black women mostly to kind of curate these large gatherings for women of color in evangelical spaces.
Hmm.
And I feel like a lot of what we were doing there was holding space for people to be like, Shane Claiborne said this and it was racist, or John Perkins said this and it was racist or sexist, or what, you know what I mean? Like it was a lot of like lament. And I look
Hmm.
back at it and I'm like, ugh, like how laborious. Like we literally just like I literally I called my house the haven for sacred weary of the haven for weary women of color. That's what and I had over 160 women in a 2-year process come.
My friend had a mug. I actually have that
exactly
mug in.
totally.
No, I have that mug in my cabinet
no way,
because
yeah.
of we've moved.
I had
It
mugs,
just ended up
right?
with me.
Exactly, right? So I made totally. That was my house in North Carolina, and I like over 160 women came over 2-year period who were all like refugees from the evangelical world, all women of color. Someone, I just quit my job at Willow Creek. I just quit my job working for CCDA. I just quit my job working for Young Life. I need a place to just heal. And I literally had a house called the Haven for Weary Women of Color. And that's what it was, right? It was people literally coming to my house and just grieving the reality, but still going back to it a lot. You know what I mean? Like not really ready to leave. And it's funny because when I finally finished, I did like 2.5 years of like really intensive trauma therapy with 2 different therapists. And as my parting gift to them, I gave them a mug, the last 2 mugs that I had of that whole set that I made. And because I just said, I no longer identify as weary.
Wow.
I'm not interested in creating a haven for weary. And also women of color means nothing to me. I'm a Black woman.
Hello.
Like I'm not even trying to hold, you know what I mean? Women of color, that's a totally problematic term. Anyway, my work is centering Black women from here on out. But also I was just like, yeah, those days of me identifying as weary and putting up with these toxic spaces and trying to hold healing space for people who were literally just getting a short break from the toxic space they were going to go back to. Those days are over. But I also feel like that was like a really holy time because that was part of my process. That was part of my journey, like having these conferences where we sit around and talk about these people who literally I don't even think about anymore. Because I'm just like, I'm too sacred for this and I'm out. Like, I'm not going to try to fix it. I'm not going to try to save these people. I don't believe that if I don't stay, no one will. I don't believe that anymore.
Yes.
I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that it's my that their salvation is my responsibility. I remember there's this poem by Donna Russian, The Bridge Called My Back poem, the bridge poem. And there's a line where she says, I'm tired of mediating with your worst self on behalf of your better self.
My.
And I'm just like, I'm not doing that anymore.
That's it.
So bless you, Skillet Dude. I hope you get what you need. And don't worry, because the Sacred Black Feminine's coming for you.
And she loves you so much.
And she she just wants to rescue you. And it's your choice if you want to be rescued, Let
me tell you what, like, the thing that just popped up was actually when I was still in missionary world, Donald Miller's Scary Close came out, and like that was it's such a great book on vulnerability. Which for a straight cis white dude, sure, great text. But the thing I remembered at the end, he was actually just writing about getting married, and the line that just always stuck with me was like in his vows, he said, I was taught my entire life that I was supposed to rescue somebody, but in the end I found out that I was the one who needed to be rescued by you. And like, I think that hit me. I'm just like, that is actually how, for me, my experience of my spirituality was like, I thought I had this call or this mission, this thing I had, like this, my debt I cannot repay to this Jesus who was slaughtered for me. So I have to do all these things that I don't like, otherwise I'm going to burn in hell. And so it's like, I look back at that now and I'm just like, oh, I thought like I had to rescue everything around me. I have to save the world. It's on you. And that is not good news. And I think
it's not good news. And it's actually like a really, I noticed that in myself. And it's like an agnostic way of living a life as a so-called believer. Like, no disrespect to agnosticism, but I was calling myself a believer, but I was out there speaking at events because I felt if I don't say it, it won't get said. If I don't fix it, it won't get fixed. If I don't protect these people, they won't be protected.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, but wait, like, isn't there some spirit or universe or divine force that is
Mhm.
like working, like that I can relinquish my cares to, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like, no, actually, no, because white male God hates me and I
Mm.
can't trust white male God. So on the one hand, I'll be like, yeah, I praise you, white Jesus. But on the other hand, I'm out here wearing my sacred black female self out, trying to
Mhm.
cover all the bases because I don't
Mhm.
actually believe that God has my back or any of our backs.
Or can actually do anything to help the situation.
Exactly. Yeah. And so once I finally got connected to an image of God where I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, a black woman's in charge? Oh, it's handled. Oh,
The
okay.
end.
Yeah. Okay. So I can just participate in the work and I can
Mhm.
actually take a nap and I can actually say no
Mm.
to people
Mhm.
if it's not
Mhm.
if my skills are not a good fit for what they need.
Mhm.
Or if I just don't feel like it because I don't like them or I don't feel safe for them, you know what I mean? Like,
It
and I
can be as simple as
remember
I don't like them.
I don't like
You don't
them.
have to like everybody. Everyone, newsflash. Did you know? We don't have to like everybody.
No, because you're not for everyone and I'm not for everyone. You know what I mean? Like it's just, and so,
Mhm.
and also like I remember, oh gosh, I forget the guy's name, but he's this like really famous black evangelical pastor. I feel like he has a church in Memphis or something. He's
Mhm.
black, but all the white evangelicals like him because he's like
Todd
conservative
White?
and
Not Todd White.
no, I forget his
I'm
name. But
thinking of the one.
anyways,
Yeah.
I see. He's somewhere in Memphis, in Tennessee. I want to say Memphis, but anyways, I remember him saying, reconcilers are bridges, and bridges get stepped on.
Mm.
And I remember being like so grateful for that like theological explanation for my exploitation. Like because I had been in these spaces just getting clobbered as a black woman as a reconciler, and then for
Mhm.
someone to basically give me a cross theology that like makes sense of my pain, I was like, oh good, okay, so it is okay. It is okay that I
Yeah.
feel terrible all the time and I'm completely disrespected and my sacred black femininity is completely stomped out all the time because that's what Jesus wants. Like
Bridges for the gospel to get more souls over to heaven. And I'm
yeah,
just like,
that's what
oh
I
my
was
God.
like. And then to actually wake up like Harriet Tubman one day and be like, but wait a second, I'm too sacred to be stepped on under any circumstances.
Annie.
Even in the service of the quote gospel, which is actually not good news to me and my black female body. It's good
Mm.
news to some white person's body, maybe,
Mm.
but not to mine. And so to realize that, like, wow, they've literally been lying to me my whole life.
That's it.
They've literally been lying to me my whole life.
I think that's what a lot of folks need to like wake up to is just like because it's it's like we wake up to the thing, we see the problem, and then also there's a guilt and shame of I was involved with this thing for so long. I'm responsible to fix this systemic problem that's been going on for forever. And in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. It's like something my friend Andre Henry asked me one time is just like, is your conversation, your work, this thing you're trying to do in that space, is it going to result in queer people staying alive and black people staying alive and women staying alive more? And that was the only litmus test. If the answer is not easy, like yes.
Well, I
Then
remember where I was in 2013. I was on my elliptical in my little apartment in Minneapolis, and I was watching a James Cone lecture. I think of it as a sermon, but he would probably call it a lecture because he's an academic.
listen, the
And
best
he
the best
literally,
academics are all preachers.
totally, yeah, and especially the ones like him. But I remember him saying, everything I do is for the liberation of black people. And that's what I was just like speaking all over the evangelical world about reconciliation and scare quotes. And I just remember stopping my elliptical and being like, nothing I do is for the liberation of black people. Like I'm out there doing things, I'm out there saying things, I'm out there writing things, but like nothing I do is for the liberation of black people. And just just having this moment of like, what am I doing? And I had a similar moment in 2015 when I was in Kolkata. I was working for Duke at the time, and so I was in India for like Duke work. And I just remember getting up at like the crack of dawn to go pray, do morning prayers at the like convent that Mother Teresa was at. And then I came out of morning prayer and it's still dark and the city is still asleep. And I don't know if you've ever been to Kolkata, but like it's so chaotic and like it's so overwhelming.
Been to India, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's any major city in India is going to be similar to this. And I just remember thinking I should go for a run right now because this is like I'm like least likely to die if I go for a run, right? Basically, right? So I get out and I'm running and I'm just running around the city and I see just the devastation of the poverty and the inequality and the injustice and just, you know, everything that you see in a major Indian city. And I just remember thinking, I am too gifted at justice work. My mind and my embodied wisdom is too sharp and too useful to be wasting it at Duke. When there's when we live in this world that has so much need and I have so much to offer that need, how can I possibly be wasting it in this space that's just consuming me, you know? And so it's like it's this both and it's just like, I'm too sacred for this. And also like the world is too sacred for this.
My God.
For me to be wasting my time being a bridge that people step on when I can actually be standing in my power, my sacred Black feminine power, and being a part of co-creating a different world, not as a savior, but just being a participant in this world that we're co-creating that is different. And so there's so much possibility when we stop focusing on the like toxicity.
In chapter 1, you said imagination is theology. We can only believe what we imagine. And I feel like that's kind of the through line of all of this is just like in those spaces, your imagination, I can say the same thing in evangelical, conservative, white male God spaces, our imagination is stunted on purpose. And we're told that anything that's outside of the picture drawn for us is sin and is not holy, is not good. And I think the journey of so many marginalized folks is realizing and coming into this thing of like, no, like they lied to you. We were all lied to. Maybe even by the nicest people in the world, but we were lied to. And you don't have to be ashamed of the fact that you got fooled.
Yeah, and that's so much shame that I've carried, you know, and have had to. I continually, you know, she who cherishes our hot mess. One of the Black Madonnas in my book is one. She's probably the one I return to the most because I'm constantly, you know, I think there's a part of me that still has this like white patriarchal impulse to have always be arriving, never on a journey, like always, you know, just kind of like I always had it all together. Even when my publisher wanted to put on the back of the book that it was a crisis of faith that sent me on this, I was like, do we want to call it a crisis? You know, even though it was absolutely a crisis, you know what I mean? Like it was, I was literally falling apart, right? But there's a part of me that still wants to be like, no, I just woke up like this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so, and that when you think about it, right? Like talk about a white patriarchal impulse. Like you're literally blaming the victim. Like I'm blaming myself for being victimized by this evil system.
Isn't that fucked?
Right? Like it just goes to show, like why am I ashamed that I need liberation? I was born on the plantation. Like why am I ashamed that I need liberation? And the more that I work through my shame, the more I'm able to give people grace and to really offer genuine compassion and love for where they're at on their journey.
Yes.
Because the more I hate where I'm at and the more I keep track of like, oh, Christina, you still need to fix this, and you still need to heal from that, and you still need to grow in this area, the more I'm just going to turn that into like a whip towards others, which is just white male God. That's why at one point in my book, I call myself white male God in blackface. Because to the extent that I need to whip other people into shape to make myself feel safe and secure is just white male God. And so it's like it's so deep and so mystical when you really go on this journey, you know, and you start to uncover these really murky caverns in your psyche and kind of like bring them into the arms of love and say, hey, let's work with this, let's be with this, and let's above all give ourselves compassion.
Unbearable compassion. Like there's a statue of the Buddha in I can't remember where, but it's called the Buddha of Unbearable Compassion, with a smile of unbearable compassion. And it said that people, when they look upon it, they just burst into tears because of just they feel that presence. And like even myself, like when I think about that idea of such unbearable compassion, that whether it is like the metaphysical presence of a person or whether it's just a thought inside me, what's the difference? That's what I say. But that's what I feel from you when you're talking about the Black Madonna and the sacred Black feminine. That's what I feel from you, is like you understand, and you like it's like oh no, like I'm not just touch the source. I am the source. I get it now. And it's so evident in your person and how you carry yourself. I just want your book is a gift. Why? It's okay.
Thank
Tears
you.
are great. Tears are wonderful.
Cleansing
Yes.
and creative. Yeah. Plant creativity.
I know we're coming on time, but I do have 5 questions, like little rapid fire things I like to ask people at the end.
Okay,
just
sure.
round it off. It's very simple, nothing too deep. Okay. What's one thing that you like about yourself?
I love how intense I am. I'm so intense. Like everything I do,
my kind of person,
like
really.
A fire. Yeah, I'm a Leo sun, moon, and rising, so I'm just like so much.
No way. No wonder.
So, and this is like the Leo full moon right now, so I'm fire.
She says I'm in her power. She says I am here.
And it's also a little bit of fire with a vengeance, because my fire was like stamped out for a while, in those spaces. So now it's just like, whew. But yeah, I've always just been super intense, and I really love that about myself.
That's wonderful. What's one thing that you're super proud of?
I'm proud of the fact that my journey towards liberation has like left nothing on the table. Like there's nothing that's held me back.
What is one thing that really pisses you off, or is like a pet peeve? It can be petty or profound.
Yeah, a lot of things. Right now, I'm really annoyed at the beaver who lives on my pond.
What are they doing?
Well, I think he just functions with a lot of toxic masculinity. He just takes up a lot of space and sneers at me every morning.
The fucking beaver community is out here just sneering at Black women.
Yeah, I think he thinks the lake is his. And then I showed up and he's like taking up space on the lake. Like the lake is frozen right now, but in the summer, he'll literally like be backstroking across the lake, just like taking up space.
He said,
and then he'll stop and like sneer at me and be like,
I'm just like, we could be friends.
He's my frenemy right now, but I have hopes that we'll be friends.
Yeah.
He's definitely a frenemy though. Yeah.
I want that for you. I believe that the beaver, like, they're just a little shy. Maybe it's just like he's been through some
stuff. He
is
not shy. Maybe he's been through some stuff, but he's not shy. But yeah, he's out there. He's out there building a dam right now. He's always out there building a dam.
They're always building men, always building dams, never trying to irrigate rivers. Anyway,
trying to stop the flow. Always trying to stop the flow.
My goodness. Listen, y'all, don't take us to church now. What's one thing that you're super committed to?
More than ever. I am more committed to, I'm more of a theist than ever, which is so funny because a lot of people from my old world would say, oh, she lost her faith. And I'm like, actually, I am more committed to the experience of God and the divine than I have ever been in my whole life, because I actually believe that she will show up, that she's present, that she's doing things, and I just have to pay attention.
I just have to pay attention. Y'all didn't know you were getting a masterclass. Ugh, sorry. Last thing. What's one thing you would like to do before you die?
Wow. I don't know. I feel like I'm always doing things that I like. I don't have a bucket list, but
It
I
doesn't
would.
have to be deep.
Yeah.
Just something you maybe haven't done before that you'd like to do before you die.
Yeah, I'd like to go on a hot air balloon. I've never done that. And I've always wanted to, but it just hasn't worked out. And it's expensive.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine, like, I know it's just like, it's the, like, they're, it's like, it's probably very safe, but like, you go down, you crash in an airplane versus crash in a car, it's like, you know, go down in an airplane versus parachuting, you know, that's me though. I'm gonna talk to God about that. We'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. I need some like some white person who has a hot air balloon to do like a reparations thing and just let a bunch of Black people go on a hot air balloon one day.
Yeah. Hey, if you're listening to
this,
and
you have a lot. Yeah. It's like $400 or something.
If you're, I know people out there who are my friends. I know you have money. PayPal Christena Cleveland $400 to make this small and achievable dream come true. I believe in it.
That would be awesome.
Where can humans find you and your work and all that shit on the interwebs? Even though you're going off the interwebs.
Well, I'm not going off the interwebs, but I will be leaving social media in April. I'll be on but I'm creating this like amazing newsletter, so it'll be way better for people because I'm not like good. If you just want to scroll, I'm not for you. If you want to chew on something, I'm for you. So so newsletter is a better format. But yeah, go to my website, ChristenaCleveland.com. And there's so many different ways to get connected to my work and support my work. And also, we are leading a virtual Black Madonna pilgrimage to all the Black Madonnas in my book starting in April. So you can get on my newsletter list and we'll keep you abreast of that transformational journey too.
Hell yeah. Christena Cleveland, thank you so much for, Dr. Christena Cleveland, PhD.
PhD.
Put them both on there.
Esquire.
Esquire.
Like just add everything. No.
Co-heir to the universe. Let's just put it on there.